What if I told you, your mind isn't yours? Every thought, every choice, even who you are, has been quietly rewritten. And after this, you'll never see yourself the same way again. You like to think you're in control. You like to think that your thoughts, your decisions, the very essence of who you are, belongs to you. But the truth is far more unsettling. Your mind is not a fortress. It's a playground for forces you can barely perceive, quietly shaping you without your permission. Every habit you cling to, every fear you hide from, every small ritual you perform every day, it's not as innocent as it seems. They're not just behaviors. They're the marks of an invisible hand slowly rewriting your identity. You think you're making choices, but more often than not, the choices have been made for you long before you even realize it. From the moment you wake, the subconscious begins its work. Every image you glance at, every word you hear, every fleeting emotion flickering across your mind. These are not just distractions. They are the tools of a quiet invasion, tiny, seemingly harmless intrusions that, over time, accumulate into profound transformation. It starts small, a thought here, a feeling there. You dismiss them. You think, that's just me, or it doesn't matter, but it does, because the mind has a way of storing these fragments, weaving them together like threads in a tapestry you can't yet see. And slowly, without warning, your subconscious begins to redraw the outline of who you are. You've heard of manipulation in others, the way people can influence and sway your decisions. But the most terrifying manipulation comes from within. Your mind, your most trusted ally, is also your most cunning adversary. It hijacks your habits, rewires your fears, and shifts your desires until one day, you wake up and realize you're someone you never consciously chose to be. The face in the mirror may be yours, but the person staring back, the one making choices, feeling emotions, acting on impulses, has been subtly rewritten. And that rewriting happens in ways so small, so ordinary, that you can't detect it until it's complete. The danger is that the process is invisible. You don't feel it while it's happening. Your mind's natural defenses, your critical thinking, your sense of self, these are not immune. In fact, they're the very instruments that make the transformation smooth, almost invisible. You rationalize new patterns. You justify new beliefs. You comfort yourself in familiar routines. All the while, the groundwork is being laid. Every moment you spend absorbed in repetitive thoughts or habits is another nail in the coffin of the old you. The transformation isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, it is silent, creeping in shadows, patient, relentless. And by the time you notice, the change is complete. Consider the fears you've carried for years. They don't exist in isolation. They are amplified and reinforced every time you feed them attention. You tell yourself you are cautious or practical, but what you are really doing is allowing your mind to shape your identity around those fears. Consider your comforts, the routines you cling to, every small, predictable pattern, every habit repeated over and over is another invisible push towards someone you may not recognize. And all of this subtle shaping occurs without malice. Your mind isn't evil, it's efficient. It doesn't care who you are. It cares only that it functions, that it adapts, that it survives. And in that survival, it rewrites you. What you resist most is what controls you. What you ignore is what defines you. The more you believe you are immune to influence, the more vulnerable you are to its quiet power. The mind's tricks are elegant. They are patient. They are relentless. They don't demand your attention. They thrive in your oblivion. And when the old patterns crumble, when the familiar version of yourself fades, you will realize with a shock that you have become something entirely new. Something you never consciously chose. And yet, something inevitable. You can fight it. You can try to reclaim what feels lost. But understand this, the mind that betrays you is also the mind that sustains you. Its quiet manipulations are the architecture of who you have become. The moment you accept that, the moment you understand that control is an illusion, is the moment the transformation completes. The secret is not in resisting it, it is in seeing it. Once you see it, nothing will ever be the same. You are no longer who you were. You've heard the phrase, "We are what we repeatedly do," but you've never grasped its true weight. Repetition is not harmless, it's not just practice. It is the most insidious architect of transformation, quietly building new wiring inside your brain until the structure of who you are begins to shift without warning. Every thought you entertain, every habit you indulge, every pattern you repeat doesn't just fade into memory, it imprints itself. It carves pathways in your mind, deep grooves that dictate the way you feel, the choices you make, the very lens through which you perceive the world. And once those pathways exist, they're difficult to erase. They are the blueprint of your new self, formed long before you consciously realize it. The mind is a master of efficiency. It doesn't distinguish between good or bad, moral or immoral, wise or foolish. It simply notices patterns and reinforces them. Every repetition strengthens neural connections. Every repeated thought solidifies belief. Every repeated action becomes instinct. You are not aware of it, but each day you are sculpting yourself, molding an identity that may not align with the person you consciously want to be. Your routines, your habits, your comforts. They are not just your choices. They are your prison, and the walls of that prison are built by your own hands, one repetition at a time. Consider the media you consume, the conversations you engage in, the ideals you admire. These are not trivial influences. They are subtle drills that reinforce what your mind accepts as normal, acceptable, or desirable. The more frequently you expose yourself to these patterns, the more your mind internalizes them, embedding them into the very fabric of who you are. Thoughts you think are yours, opinions you hold are yours, preferences you express. They are often echoes of repetition, not true choice. And yet, the mind will defend them as if they were sacred. You believe you are in control, but the chains that bind you were forged in silence through constant repetition. Repetition doesn't just shape behavior, it shapes identity. Every morning you wake up and perform the same rituals, every reaction you have to the same triggers, every small habit you cling to. These are the silent engineers of your personality. You think of them as mundane, as comforting, as harmless. But in truth, they are powerful. They can strengthen courage or reinforce fear. They can amplify creativity or cement stagnation. They can build a resilient mind or a fragile one. And the terrifying part is that this shaping happens invisibly. You rarely notice it. It is patient, it is relentless, it is inevitable. Think about the beliefs you hold, the assumptions that guide your choices. Most of them are the product of repetition. Ideas repeated enough times, patterns followed enough times, become undeniable truths in the mind. The repetition is a form of conditioning, a slow and silent hypnosis. You accept without question what has been fed to you over and over. You may think you arrived at these truths yourself, but the reality is more chilling. You have been molded, your mind has been trained. And often, the more convinced you are of your independence, the deeper the conditioning runs. The most dangerous repetition is the one you choose to ignore. Habits, thoughts, behaviors you dismiss as insignificant are the seeds of transformation. The mind does not discriminate between profound and trivial. Every repetition, every small compliance, every thought indulged accumulates power over time. It builds a version of you that might feel familiar yet is fundamentally altered. And when the moment comes that you finally notice, it is too late. The new self has taken root. The architecture of your personality, once fluid and free, has been cemented by the very repetition you failed to notice. The paradox is brutal. You desire change, yet you are enslaved by repetition. You strive for freedom, yet you are bound by habits you unconsciously reinforce. The mind does not act with malice. It does not need to. It simply follows the patterns you give it. And in following them, it reshapes the essence of who you are. Every repeated thought, every repeated behavior, every repeated emotion is another stroke in the painting of your new identity. And when the final stroke is complete, you may barely recognize yourself. The mind obeys what you repeat. Emotions are more than feelings. They are the silent architects of your identity, shaping your decisions, your behavior, and ultimately, who you become. You think you feel freely, but emotions are not neutral. They are instruments, tools, that can be wielded, consciously or unconsciously, to guide the trajectory of your life. Guilt, shame, fear, pleasure, they are not just reactions. They are the levers that can rewrite the script of your personality without you ever realizing it. And the most terrifying truth is that you wield these levers even against yourself. Consider guilt. It creeps in quietly, a shadow whispering that you are not enough, that you have failed, that you must act in ways that at first seem harmless. You punish yourself, restrict yourself, bend to invisible pressures, all in the name of righting imagined wrongs. And while you believe you are learning, growing, or correcting your path, your mind is quietly reshaping your identity around fear and compliance. Shame works in tandem. It burrows into the deepest corners of your psyche, convincing you that parts of yourself are unworthy, unlovable, even dangerous. The patterns it enforces are powerful and invisible. You believe you are making choices, but every decision is filtered through layers of emotional conditioning you may never consciously perceive. Pleasure is no less dangerous. The moments of comfort, reward, and gratification that you chase are not merely enjoyable, they are reinforcing circuits in your mind. Every small indulgence, every fleeting moment of satisfaction leaves a residue, a trace that rewires your priorities. Over time, what once felt incidental becomes central to your identity. The things that bring you comfort begin to define who you are, even when you resist labeling them as such. Your mind is learning, adapting, transforming, all while you assume you remain the same. The emotional landscape of your life is a battlefield, often unseen and unacknowledged. You fight wars inside yourself every day, deciding what to indulge, what to suppress, what to ignore, and what to embrace. These choices may appear conscious, but they are shaped by layers of conditioning, patterns of reward, and the subtle mechanics of survival. Each emotional response leaves an imprint. Each reaction reinforces a pattern. Each feeling strengthens a pathway in your mind. And slowly, imperceptibly, your emotional responses shape your identity far more than your conscious thoughts ever could. Manipulation doesn't have to come from another person. You manipulate yourself constantly, feeding fears, indulging desires, justifying actions, rationalizing behavior. Your emotions are the instruments, and your mind the maestro. This self-directed orchestration can elevate you or ensnare you. The difference between the two lies not in intention, but in awareness. Without conscious observation, you are a puppet dancing to your own strings, guided by currents you cannot see, by forces you cannot name. And here lies the dark irony. The very emotions that make you human are the ones that can unmake you. They shape your values, your decisions, and the contours of your personality. They mold your fears, reinforce your habits, and anchor your beliefs. They do not ask permission. They do not need consent. They simply act, quietly, invisibly, relentlessly, until the person you once were is gone, replaced by a version defined by what you have felt, rather than who you have consciously chosen to be. Your mind is not just aware of your emotions, it is trained by them. Every fear followed, every pleasure indulged, every pang of guilt entertained is another brushstroke in the portrait of your identity. You are not the master of your feelings, you are their canvas. Your emotions own you. Beliefs are the silent chains that govern your existence. You tell yourself that they are harmless thoughts, simple ideas, or harmless opinions, but they are far more than that. They are invisible rules etched deep into your mind, dictating how you see the world, how you judge others, and how you judge yourself. From the moment you accept them, they begin to direct your decisions, shape your actions, and quietly define who you are. The mind doesn't merely carry beliefs, it is carried by them. And once a belief takes root, it exerts a power over you that is both subtle and absolute. Most people never question their beliefs. They assume that what they think, what they hold true, is theirs by choice. But look closer. How many of those ideas were planted before you were old enough to notice? How many were handed down, absorbed from family, society, culture, or circumstance? The mind does not ask permission. It quietly accepts what it is fed, and over time, those ideas crystallize into truth, shaping behavior and reinforcing patterns. You believe you are independent, free to think, but the reality is darker. The invisible strings of belief tug at every decision, every habit, every desire, and the tighter the belief grips, the less freedom you have. The mind is merciless in its obedience to belief. Once it has accepted something as truth, it will defend it tirelessly. It will bend reality, twist perception, and rationalize contradictions to protect that truth. And so, even when faced with evidence that challenges it, you resist, you deny, you fight. The mind cannot let go. It will not let go. The very survival of your self-image, your sense of certainty, depends on adherence to these beliefs, and with every moment you cling to them, your identity becomes less a matter of choice and more a matter of conditioning. Beliefs are not static, they evolve. They are reinforced by repetition, strengthened by emotion, and embedded by habit. Each time you act in accordance with a belief, each time you feel justified by it, each time you defend it against challenge, the chains grow stronger. And the most dangerous chains are the ones you cannot see. You carry them as though they are invisible truths, unaware that they dictate the trajectory of your life, silently shaping who you are, who you will become, and how the world will perceive you. Freedom is the illusion that you hold control over your beliefs. But the mind does not grant freedom easily. It follows what it has learned to accept as reality. And once beliefs take root, they are difficult to uproot. They shape your fears, reinforce your desires, and dictate the rules by which you navigate life. The person you think you are, the choices you believe are yours, the actions you take consciously, may in fact be the product of unseen influences, planted long before you understood their power. By the time you notice the manipulation, the beliefs have already done their work. You are no longer the author of your story, you are a character written by invisible hands. Awareness is the only path to liberation, but even awareness is a double-edged sword. The moment you recognize the strings, the moment you see how deeply your beliefs have defined you, is the moment you understand the truth. The self you believed was yours has always been a construct, an echo of ideas imposed upon you. You can fight it, question it, try to reshape it, but the recognition alone changes you. You are no longer untouched by the very beliefs you once took for granted. You have been altered. You have been rewritten. Beliefs do not just influence you, they own you. You thought you were in control, but the truth is, you've been rewritten. The old you is gone, the new you is permanent.